everyone, Thordan Smash here, and we are out rock climbing in Colorado. And today we are going to be talking about some controversy hitting Apex Legends and also ALGS. We're going to go over all of that. We're also going to go ahead and give out a Watson Prestige skin. All you got to do is like, comment, subscribe. You guys know the drill. But without further ado, let's jump into today's topic.
So what happens when a game built on inclusion sends some of its best players to a country where being gay is a crime? And that's the question right now many in Apex Legends community are asking, because while Respawn is tweeting support for LGBTQIA plus players during Pride Months, its official esports circuit is simultaneously sending pros to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for a mandatory $2 million tournament. So we're going to break down why this contradiction matters, not just morally but structurally, and what it reveals about the current and future state of Apex Legends esport. And before we go into that, let me be very clear, this isn't about dunking on any country's laws or traditions. Nations govern how they see fit, and that's a complex geopolitical webway beyond the scope of a YouTube channel named Thordan Smash. This is simply meant to be a showing of the contradiction that Respawn and EA seem to be putting out into the market. So let's go ahead and start in early June of 2025. EA and the Esports World Cup Foundation announced that two flagship events would take place in Riyadh. The ALGS Midseason Playoffs, which is an officially sanctioned ALGS tournament. No, it's not just Apex Legends being at the Esports World Cup there. This is something that ALGS is combining into it, with a $2 million prize pool, and then also the EA Sports FC 25, but that's soccer slash football. We're not really going to bother with that. Now, unlike other tournaments at the Esports World Cup, these aren't expeditions or optional lands like I just mentioned. These are mandatory circuit events. Opting out would affect competitive standings and possibly even disqualify players from the ALGS World Championship because you would have no points going into it. This structure actually makes participation, pretty much mandatory. This isn't a simple choice to decline. If you're part of the global Apex Pro scene, you either compete in Saudi Arabia or you're going to forfeit your spot in the most competitive esports ecosystem the franchise has right now. That going into it, the corporate messaging is actually the problem with all of this. You see, there's already a lot of controversy about it being there to begin with, but the situation intensifies, and this is where the crux of the video is going to lay in, because Respawn posted the following tweet at the start of Pride Month, which was, just the other day. They said, "Now more than ever, it's important to support our LGBTQIA plus colleagues, players, friends, and family. Thank you to everyone who makes our communities better, brighter, and more inclusive for all. Happy Pride Month, Legends." In isolation, the tweet is totally fine. It's, something the game's foundation is built on. However, the issue arises when you actually juxtapose it with corporate decisions, such as holding it in Saudi Arabia. Holding a mandatory tournament in a country where same-sex relationships are criminalized and punishable by imprisonment, corporal punishment, or worse, yes, sometimes there's even death, creates a direct contradiction between what they are saying as their public values and then their operational actions. So we're going to break that down into three layers. The first is the ethical layer. There are LGBTQIA plus pro players. They do exist. They are there. Hambino is a very notable example. And there are legal risks when traveling to Saudi Arabia. And then you have public-facing statements promote inclusion, while institutional behavior creates exclusion via geography. I know it's a lot of sentences and words there, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense with what Respawn is exactly trying to do here. Number two is the structural layer. By making the event mandatory to go ahead and play in the World Series, EA and Respawn aren't just hosting an international tournament, they are coercing participation, and players uncomfortable with the location are structurally disadvantaged regardless of skill. Then there's the brand integrity layer. Apex Legends has built a reputation on diverse, inclusive lore. Bloodhound's non-binary, Gibraltar's gay, Catalyst is trans, so on and so forth. They have very much marketed that game to those members of the community with those backstories for those legends. But the game's esports infrastructure now operates in opposition to those values, which basically erodes trust in Respawn's commitment to representation. Exactly, the main issue here is they are playing both sides. So to understand the financial and structural incentives, we need to look deeper at who's funding and hosting the Esports World Cup. There's the Savvy Games Group, owned entirely by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, the ESL Faceit Group, which is also owned by Savvy Games, and then of course the Esports World Cup Foundation, which claims to be non-profit but is bankrolled through Saudi state funding under the guise of a sports grant. Yeah, didn't think I was going to pull that out. I did. This network means that ALGS is no longer operating independently. It's now integrated into a state-run global esports initiative, which has been criticized as sports washing, which is a tactic to improve Saudi Arabia's global image by sponsoring public entertainment, especially while its human rights record remains under scrutiny from watchdogs like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. I don't know if anyone remembers the giant soccer stadium that was built there under slave labor. I remember a huge issue about that a couple years ago. But now we're going to move into where speculation actually becomes pretty relevant and important. There are increasing signs that EA may be preparing to offload Apex Legends Esports, ALGS basically, cost cutting in the 2026 fiscal year, including reduced dev support for the ALGS. In fact, the ALGS commissioner just stepped down the other day, increased outsourcing of tournament production, and lower prize pool growth. This has all been talked about, I think, by Sweet actually on Twitch. But regardless, partnering with an entity like Savvy Games Group solves multiple problems. It provides massive capital investment with minimal upfront risk to EA. It removes logistical burdens by placing operations under third-party infrastructure and allows EA to retain licensing rights while externalizing the ethical burden of location choices. And basically, if this trend continues, Apex Legends Esports could become fully privatized under Saudi oversight, while EA focuses purely on IP monetization and content updates, which I think has been their plan for a very long time. And players and fans have voiced frustration online. On Reddit and Twitter, threads have emerged with titles like ALGS going to Saudi Arabia feels like a slap in the face. How can you support Pride and send me somewhere I'm illegal? And these aren't performative complaints, they reflect structural problem. You're putting certain players in physically risky environments. Teams maybe feel pressure to avoid bringing out representation from that minority community, leading to de facto discrimination. Silence becomes self-preservation, and expression becomes a career risk. And the ripple effect may also include sponsors distancing themselves from players or teams attending, content creators and fans from that minority community disengaging from Apex Esports, and broad erosion of goodwill towards Respawn and EA. And then, of course, broad erosion of goodwill towards Respawn and EA. Once again, that's basically what I want to talk about today, and this isn't to stomp on anyone's beliefs. Whatever you want to believe, whatever choices you made in life, that is totally fine. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm just here to point out the hypocrisy about what EA and Respawn are doing, pandering to one community while going ahead and hosting something officially and mandatory that goes completely against their statements that they're also making online to try to sell skins and cosmetics to that fan base. All that being said, we're gonna go ahead and jump to community clips now. Don't forget to spend your own to me at Thordan's Passion on Twitter, but without further ado, let's roll it.
Enemy killed. That rings far. That's a far ring.
Hostile landed near me.
Enemy taken down.
I have an extended sniper mag here.
Reloading. A new level means a time machine. That's me. More enemies down.
The first has fallen.
The enemies are shooting at me. Whole squad down. Now we can loot them.
Good job.
You're the kill leader. Someone's
Let
going.
me know down below what are some of your guys' thoughts about ALGS and what's coming to the game in the near future and the controversy surrounding it. Also, don't forget to check out this video right here where we cover more news and information on Apex Legends on the daily. And until next time, everyone, keep sliding the outwinds. I'll see you out there.